Okay, we got another box from Lens Pro to go. As usual, they put in the return packing, return UPS thing, and today I've gotten a Canon T3i and a Canon 200 f2L IS lens and the Canon tilt shift 17mm. And then there's this Pelican case that I suspect has the other two lenses in it, and the T3i. Mike Duval from Lens Pro to Go sent us some business cards and some cables and a strap. A brand new T3i in the box. So we're going to give that a trial since we had the 60D last week. This week we're going to try out the T3i. And of course, the battery charger so you can charge the batteries. So that's cool. Here we go. We're going to run you through some of the controls on the new T3i from Canon. The menus are pretty much the same. You get the traditional little boxes across the top, and most of the initial settings, we're going to skip through sort of the red ones. Most of them are pretty much the same as the other cameras like the 60D and the 7D. They all are quite a bit upgraded from the 5D Mark II, which is almost 3 years old now, 2.5 years old. The first four red settings are pretty much the same. You get to the blue section, you get a new thing that we'll talk about in a minute. I'll show you how the resize works when we get to the My menu. You also have a new rating control that you didn't have before in any of the other cameras. You also have bass boost, which did not exist before. That is for making the sound tones heavier in bass in video. With the ratings, you actually have to be in the menu system in order to do any of the ratings. If you simply go into display mode by pushing the play button, you don't get the ratings options. So going into the menu and doing ratings will show you across the top. Now we have this new section that shows us the star ratings for an individual item, and you can control that by doing the up arrow and the down arrow. So on this particular one, it's currently off. We can rate it 1 star all the way up to 5 stars, and you'll see that the counter changes, indicating how many images on this card have been rated. In this case, with 4 stars, we have 2 and 0 for the rest. So many people will probably take that and put it in the green menu, or the My menu that they like to call it, which is what I've done, because if I zip down here, you'll see that I've put creative filters, resize, and rating, which we haven't talked about creative filters yet, but I've put all those here so that they're easily accessible all in one spot, which is why I really like the My menu. The thing I don't like about the My menu is that it doesn't scroll. You only get 5 items to put in here, 6 items, because there's one more slot available. So you get six slots to put something, and that's it. Going back to the earlier menus to see if we missed anything, we have screen color, which I don't recall seeing before. It might have been there before. We have the feature guide, which is something brand new to the T3i, and that I'll show you by going out of the menus. The Q button that's right here takes you into the detail menus for this, and you'll see that there is this additional information dialog that pops up as you scroll through, giving you, the reader, a better indication of what that is in case you're an amateur and don't know what all of these settings are. Obviously, those of you who are pros will not need that function, so you can turn it off. It also is enabled when you're changing modes on the mode dial. We have a new description of what each one of those modes does as you scroll through the modes, and then as you get into an individual item, for example the Creative Auto, as you go into the Q button, then you get the menus, the additional menu descriptions here as well, so that it'll walk you through. Who needs to read a manual anymore, right? It's all right here. And I think that's good. I'm sure that this kind of assistance will migrate to the newer cameras as Canon goes along. But it's an optional thing that you can turn on and off. Going back to the menus, so there's that feature guide that you can turn on and off. I believe all of these are fairly standard, and I'm in Creative Auto, so I need to go back to program mode to get to the more detailed menus. You now have the option to put in your copyright information. You can enter the author's name and details. Obviously you have to do that with a lot of scrolling. I believe you can still do that in the EOS utility on your computer, but this gives you the ability to do it in the menu system itself. And you can set the copyright details in the same manner. You have the ability to clear all your settings, and then of course there's the new My Menu where you can set your own functions. So let's talk about the creative filters. Same as the ratings, you have to actually come to the menu to accomplish that. But once you're in the creative filters, which is indicated by that little blue icon there, once you're in there, then you have the ability, you use the set button to bring up the menu of the different creative filters. Here we have grainy black and white, we have soft focus, we have the fisheye effect, we have toy camera, and then we have miniature effect, which is actually what I have already done to this image. So let's step back and go to a different image. Let's say we want to fool with this one and do the set button. So here's what grainy black and white looks like. It takes it a second for you to see the results, and you can change some of the settings within each individual, and pressing the set button would record that. So I'm going to do the menu to go back one and show you that soft focus obviously is going to blur that a little bit. The fisheye effect is pretty nice. It's not as effective as having an actual fisheye, but you can tweak it just a little bit. The toy camera, you get to fool with the color tones a little bit. You get 3 different options here. And then lastly is the miniature effect. So you can do a pretend tilt shift, and you have the option of changing where the focus is by doing up or down. And if you do the info button, which is up here, you can change it to vertical and scroll left and right in order to make that miniature effect happen. So for example, if we're going to do it to this one, I'm going to press the set button. It gives you the opportunity to save it as a new file, and you say okay, so it adds a new image to your card, tells you where it is, and then so you have the original image, you have the original image and the miniature image. Oh, and I'm sorry, it added it to the end. So anyway, so they're both stored on the card. I think you get the idea. Here in movie mode, we have a couple of different menus. You see the top bar is not as long as it was when we were in program or manual mode. And most of the settings here start out with the live view, or how to shoot movies. You have a selection of live mode for the autofocus, face live mode, or quick mode. I tend to personally prefer quick mode. Quick mode flips the mirror down, since you're in live view already, sets the focus, and then puts the mirror back up for live view. I just find that a little easier myself, so that's what I usually pick. You have the different controls with changing the autofocus by using the shutter button. You can turn that on or off. You can change the settings of the AE lock functions for autofocus or AE lock, etc. You can use a remote control if you purchase that. I believe it's an extra purchase. Highlight tone priority usually is disabled. Movie recording size. This is where you're going to set the new digital zoom either on or off. When it's off, and I'll show you an example of this later in the video. When it's off, then you're normal, but your digital zoom goes from 3 times to 10 times. We found that the 3 times is a pretty decent recording. The 10 times, like most digital cameras, when you zoom that far in, it's just way out and won't work. You also have the traditional 1920 by 30 frames per second, 24 frames per second. Or if you want to go to 60 frames per second, then you're at 720. Sorry. Using this dial. This shows you 720 for 60 frames, or you can go down to the small mode with 30 frames with a very small movie. You know pretty much all of these setting styles, quality. Oh, look, we got raw video. No, wait, that's just for stills mode. Sorry to fake everybody out there. Traditional stills things. We have the bass boost and the rating here as well. So other than the video mode, there isn't much new to see in this particular area. That's a run through on the menus in the new Canon T3i. We'd like to thank Lens Pro to Go for letting us borrow the camera for a few days so that we can try it out and give you an idea of what's new. This is standard resolution for video at 30 frames per second, f4.0, ISO is set to 400. This is the zoom mode at the lowest setting of 3 times zoom. Zooming in, this is 6.7 times, and this is 10 times zoom. Testing the zoom function, we are currently at 3 times zoom, and we're going to zoom in. You have to hold down the display button and then zoom, so there is some hands on the equipment which causes a little shaking. So we're at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and fully zoomed in at 10. We're at 30 frames per second. I'm sorry, the shutter speed, yes, we're at 30 frames per second. Shutter speed is 30, 1/30th of a second. F-stop is 4.0, and the ISO is at 400. 24 to 105 L outdoors. We are zoomed all the way to 105 on the zoom lens. We're at 30 frames per second. F-stop is F4. We're at 1/60th of a second shutter speed, and the ISO is 100. I turned on the 3 to 10 zoom, and we're going to zoom in. Again, you have to press down the display button and the plus button to zoom in. So it can be a little shaky. You don't want to do this live zoom, I don't think.